Good morning and welcome to Live Without Limits. Transform your thinking to redesign your life. The podcast where we explore what it means to live with purpose, truth, and personal power every day. I'm your host, Davida Shinsky, and today's episode is personal and powerful. We're diving into a topic many people face but rarely talk about. What do you do when someone tries to rewrite your identity, strip away your confidence, or manipulate who you are to control you? If you've ever felt like you were sharing yourself or shrinking yourself to keep the peace, if you've been told that you're too much or not enough, or if someone made you question your own worth to keep you under their control, this episode is for you. As the saying goes, no one can take your power unless you hand it to them. But what if you didn't know you were handing it over? Today, we're going to unpack how people try to control you by ending your identity and how you can reclaim your power, your voice, and your sense of self. So, how people try to steal the power. Let's start with how this control shows up. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it's subtle. A partner constantly joking about your dreams or appearance. A parent telling you that you'll never succeed unless you follow their way. A friend or a boss who always second guesses your decisions or makes you feel small when you express yourself. These aren't just personality differences, they're forms of manipulation used to gain control by making you question your truth. And then there's the more overt stuff, guilt tripping. After I've done this for you, this is how you treat me. Isolation. They slowly disconnect you from your support system. Emotional abuse. They criticize your every move and blame you for everything that goes wrong. You start noticing that you walk on eggshells to avoid upsetting them. You keep your opinions to yourself because it's not worth the fight. You look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself anymore. This isn't love, it's control wrapped in false care. And I can tell you what it feels like because I lived with it all my childhood. And the sad part is that oftentimes, unless you're willing to change, what you will find that happens is that people repeat the same behavior that they grew up with, and therefore, until you're willing to break the bonds, everything will stay the same. Control feels safer than vulnerability. Some people fear emotional uncertainty. They don't know how to handle conflict, rejection, or insecurity. So instead of building trust, they build control. They may say, I just want what's best for you. I'm only trying to protect you. But underneath it, it's about managing their own anxiety, not your well-being. Remember this, and this remains repeating, that it's about managing their own anxiety, not your well-being. Often, Small children, they need to be guided. But as a child gets older, they need to be given a little bit more responsibility to learn how to live their own life. And what happens is that if you don't allow them to live their life and just give them advice on how you see things, then what's going to happen is the day will come when they're so dependent on you that when you're gone, they don't know how to make a life for themselves. So they equate love with ownership, often due to upbringing or trauma. Some individuals believe that loving someone means having power over them, deciding what they wear, who they talk to, and how they live. It's not love, it's possession disguised as care. They're repeating learned patterns. People who grow up in environments where love was conditional, manipulative, or controlling often repeat these patterns, even if they swear that they won't. They may not consciously realize they're using love as a tool for control. It's simply how they learned to connect. Remember, we learn how to treat others by how we're treated ourselves. And often, history repeats itself. And remember this. This is what it says, and it remains repeating. It may not consciously realize what they're doing and using love as a tool for control. It's simply how they learn to connect because they were controlled by a parent and they were treated this way. This is them exactly repeating that behavior and treating you exactly the way they expect to be treated. And I've also got a show that I'm going to be doing in the future that talks about control. So they struggle with low self-worth. Someone with a fragile ego may try to control their partner to feel more important, needed, or superior. If you start to grow or shine, it threatens their identity. So they pull you back subtly or forcefully, all while claiming it's love. I can remember, and this was back in the 20th century, but when women didn't have a whole lot of options, but all my mother told me was I should go become a teacher. Now, I'm not someone that knows how to control a classroom of kids. What I do by creating e-learning courses on personal development and entrepreneurship is more about teaching adults and giving them the skills on how to improve their lifestyle. If you listen to my podcast, you will see that many of them have the same message, that you have to live your life to the way you want to, and you have to learn to love yourself, because if you don't love yourself, then you're not going to love anyone else or show them respect. So, control masquerades as protection. This one can be confusing. They may say, I know what's best. I'm just looking out for you. I love you too much to let you mess this up. But what they're really doing is dismissing your autonomy and replacing your voice with their own. That's not love, it's emotional suppression. Love is used to justify control. Control masters sounds like I'm only jealous because I care. If you loved me, you'd do it my way. I don't want to lose you, so I have to keep you close. These phrases create emotional confusion, making you feel guilty for asserting independence. It's a manipulative loop designed to make control look like devotion. True love is control. The key difference here's here's what we call true love, and then we're going to talk about controlling love. So true love respects your choices. Controlling love demands compliance. True love encourages growth, builds trust, and accepts your individuality. Controlling love fears change, uses fear or guilt, and requires you to conform. The impact of your identity and self worth when someone chips away at who you are, they damage runs deep. You begin to doubt your instincts. You silence your needs. You think you're overreacting. You wonder if you're even lovable as you are. You start seeing yourself through their eyes, and their eyes are often disturbed and distorted. Now, you might change how you speak, dress, or show up just to feel accepted to avoid conflict. But every time you betray yourself to stay in their favor, you lose a piece of your identity. And that identity, that's your power. When you lose sight of it, you feel weak, confused, and unsure of who you are without them. This is what emotional manipulation is. And it doesn't just break your heart, it erodes your foundation. Emotional manipulation is a subtle but powerful form of control. It distorts reality, wears down your self trust, and often leaves you questioning your own thoughts and feelings. Here are some common ways that someone might use emotional manipulation to control another. Now, before I get into that, this is what I want to say. If you look back at the 60s, and there was a movie made about the 60s, it was an era of awakening when the baby boomers began to see things differently than their parents, and they started to, and that was also the era when you started seeing certain modalities in psychology being talked about more because, and if you remember, the social awareness of the black the civil rights movement, and now you're seeing with what's going on in our government, trying to go back to that era of suppression, and what's happening is you're seeing more and more people in the streets today protesting because we've come a long way from where we were in the latter part of the 20th century, whether it's through technology, whether it's through science, and understanding that, then it helps us understand just how far we've come and how what we're seeing now is trying to bring us back to that era where this was going on, where You were not aware of it, and you were continuing to perpetuate those behavior patterns. So recognizing it helps you understand how to deal with it, how to overcome it, and how to live the life you were meant to have. Gaslighting. What is gaslighting? It's making you doubt your reality, memory, or feelings. For example, you're too sensitive. That never happened. You always make things up. You're overreacting again. Why do they do that? To confuse you and make you reliant on their version of events so they can stay in control. Guilt tripping. And what is it? It's using guilt to make you feel responsible for their emotions or actions. For example, after all I've done for you, this is how you treat me? If you really love me, you do this. I guess I just don't matter to you anymore. Why they do it? To make you give in, stay silent, or sacrifice your needs for their approval. I can always remember when I was a child, Mom, if you do this, this, and this, I'll do this, this, and this. She never had any intention of doing the things that she said she was going to do, but that was her way of guilt tripping you into making you do what she wanted you to do. So there's other ways and there's different ways. Each person does it differently. So actually understanding it, seeing what's happening, helps you to understand exactly where all this comes from and how to recognize it and how not to fall into playing their game. I can remember that my mother and my sister would try to gang up on me. I would turn around and walk away from them. I was not going to play their game, and it bothered them because they knew they had no control over me. Silent treatment. What it is: withdrawing communication or affection to punish or control. For example, ignoring texts or calls when upset, giving you the cold shoulder for hours or days without explanation, using silence to pressure you into apologizing even when you're not wrong. They do it to gain power by making you anxious or desperate for reconnection, playing the victim. What it is: turning every situation into your fault so they can avoid accountability. And we've seen this play out in public, on the news, through certain celebrities, how they constantly don't want to take responsibility for their bad behavior, so they're blaming it on their brother or on their father because the mother died, and making her out to be a saint. She was a human being. She had faults just like anyone else, but being a young child, but it's convenient because as you get older, you should be able to recognize these things and take responsibility for your own behavior. But if you're not, then it's showing that you're just stuck or refusing to change your behavior because you like being where you are. Here's an example of what someone does or says when they're playing the victim. You're the one hurting me. I'm just reacting. Everyone always leaves me. You're just like the rest. I'm the one who's suffering here, not you. Why they do it? To keep the focus on their emotions and manipulate you into backing down. Love bombing and withholding. What is it? It's showering you with affection one moment, then withdrawing it the next. For example, over the top compliments or gifts after arguments, sudden coldness when you express independence, using affection as a reward for obedience. Why they do it? To make you emotionally dependent on their approval and affection. Blame shifting. What is it? Redirecting blame onto you, no matter the situation. Here are some examples. I wouldn't have yelled if you weren't so difficult. You're the reason I get upset all the time. I only act this way because of how you treat me. Why they do it? To avoid responsibility and to keep you in a defensive, apologetic state. Triangulation. What is it? Bringing in a third party to create jealousy, insecurity, or competition. For example, comparing you to an ex. They never made this a problem. Mentioning others who agree with them. Everyone thinks you're overreacting. Flirting with someone else to get a reaction. Why they do it? To destabilize you emotionally and reinforcing their control through comparison. Creating dependency. What is it? Isolating you or making you feel like you can't survive without them. Here are some examples. Undermining your confidence. You'd be lost without me. Discouraging independence. Why would you go back to school or get a job? I'll take care of everything. Slowly removing your support system. Why they do it? So they rely completely on them emotionally, financially, or socially. And these people are people who totally need to remain in control. And they they have such low self-esteem to begin with. They literally don't know how to show affection because they don't really know how to love themselves. And it's hard to love someone else when you don't love yourself. And many years ago, you would see women who grew up in homes where they were they if they didn't get married by the time they were 21, they were considered an old maid or it was. And I knew several people. One married someone simply because she was afraid no one else would ever ask her. And that's not a reason to get married. And when and stayed with that person for 21 years, even though he abused her daily. And her mother came to visit, and here's the husband jumping on her and beating up on her. And instead of the mother taking her home and saying, you don't have to put up with that, you're better off without him, she goes home and talks to the son and just acts like there was nothing wrong there. And so it's learning how to take control of your own life and live the life you were meant to have and not allowing other people to take control of your life. So emotional manipulation is not love. It's control dressed up as concern, passion, or protection. If you're experiencing any of these behaviors, you have the right to question them, set boundaries, and seek support. Financial control is one of the most powerful and dangerous forms of emotional manipulation because it limits a person's freedom, choices, and sense of security. It often hides behind the mask of love, protection, or responsibility, but in reality, it's the tool used to dominate, silence, and trap someone in a relationship. And this is something that my mother constantly would use to control. And and because I was so independent, it bothered them. So that when she died, instead of leaving me what was meant to be my fair share of the estate, she basically gave it all to my younger sister. And why did she do it? Because they were two peas in a pod. They were both abusive. They were both jealous. When they would get together, all they would do is talk about what this one had in the bank, the kind of home they had, the kind of car they drove. And they were so jealous that they would go out and buy the same car or buy the same clothes. And you know, what one person wears doesn't mean the other person should wear, because everybody and everyone's body type is different. And you have to dress to what you like, not what someone else likes. So here's how financial control becomes a form of emotional manipulation. Controlling all the money, what it looks like. One partner keeps all the income in their name. You've given an allowance or have to ask for money. They make you make financial decisions without your input. And I can remember many years ago, after my father passed away, I had to fight with my mother to get her to give me, especially when I was going into college, and to give me more money. And not only to give me more money, but to give it to me once a month and not daily or weekly. And and then I had to almost fight with her to get that money when every month. So that's understanding how people can use that to control someone else. And I've got an older sister who's just deaf. And the funny thing is, she would keep my mother's books for her while my mother was alive, and keep the books written down on what came in. And yet they so beat into her that she's poor, that she literally believes she's poor and doesn't understand that that money that she was putting in and writing down was as much her money and was there to take care of her and her needs. So it's understanding how people use these different techniques to control you and to keep you down. So the emotional manipulation, it creates dependence, making you feel powerless to leave or even speak up. You're treated like a child instead of an equal, monitoring or questioning every purchase, what it looks like. You've made you feel guilty for buying anything, even essentials. Recipients and receipts are demanded. Every dollar is tracked and judged. You feel anxious anytime you need to spend money. The emotional manipulation, it instills fear and shame around financial independence. You start doubting your own needs and become conditional to seek approval. Now, here's another thing. When when you're an adult and you go out to work and earn your own money, they still can't try to control you financially by making little remarks like, why would you buy that? That's too much. You spent too much. Uh, and it's like they want to control how you do everything. Now, denying you access to money or resources. What it looks like. They refuse to let you have your own bank account. You're not allowed to work or are pressured to quit your job. They can't access credit cards or financial documents, or rather, you can't. The emotional manipulation is that you become trapped, unable to make independent choices, plan an exit, or build your own future. Let me tell you something. I was I had to basically, in my mother's mind, I ran away, but I actually took a job somewhere else out of state and moved out on my own and didn't tell her what I was doing because I knew that she would be very negative because she could never say anything encouraging. It was always a negative remark about everything. And understanding where she was coming from, I had to get around her, but that's because my background was psychology, my background was mental health and rehabilitation counseling. So I was very much aware of what they were doing. And because I was aware of it, they couldn't use it on me. And it bothered them. Guilt tripping about financial support. What it looks like. You wouldn't have anything without me. I pay the bills, so I make the rules. Don't forget everything I do for you. The emotional manipulation. They weaponize the financial support to control your behavior or silence your voice, using money to reward or punishment. What it looks like. Generosity is used to win you back after fights, love bombing, money or gifts are withheld when you disagree or set boundaries. The emotional manipulation. This creates trauma bond where money is tied to emotional safety, making it hard to break free, sabotaging your financial independence. What it looks like, discouraging you from pursuing a job or an education, damaging your credit, racking up debt in your name, interfering with your career growth or work schedule. The emotional manipulation, they're ensuring that you stay reliant on them emotionally and financially. So, why it's so powerful? Money isn't just about paying the bills. It's about freedom, dignity, and options. When someone controls your finances, they control your ability to say no, to leave, or to live fully on your own terms. What you can do, start saving small amounts in a secure account. Talk to a trusted friend, advocate, or financial counselor. Document financial abuse if you're planning to leave. Educate yourself about budgeting, credit, or legal rights. Financial control is emotional manipulation in disguise. True love supports your independence, not your dependence. How to reclaim your identity and power. Here's the good news. You can take your power back, and you don't need anyone's permission to do it. So, let me walk you through how to do that. Name what's happening. Say it clearly. I am being manipulated. I've lost touch with myself trying to meet someone else's version of me. Naming it breaks the illusion. Reconnect with your core self. Who were you before they made you feel like you weren't enough? Journal your memories. What did you love doing? What made you laugh? What lit you up? These are not lost. They're waiting for you to return. rebuilding your voice. Speak your truth, even if it's scary. Start small. That doesn't feel good to me. I'm allowed to feel this way. I need space right now. Your voice is your compass. So let it lead you home. You can set strong boundaries. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to protect your peace. Boundaries are how you teach people to treat you and how you teach yourself that you matter. Surround yourself with truth tellers. You need people who see you, not who they want you to be. Seek out friends, mentors, or support groups that affirm your identity. Practice self trust. Make a promise to yourself, then keep it. It could be as simple as going for the walk, journaling, or cooking your favorite meal. Each time you honor yourself, you reclaim your power. I know how hard it is to break free from someone's control, especially when they convinced you that who you are isn't enough. But you are the most and more than enough. You are worthy. You are whole. And your identity belongs to you, not to anyone else. So, here are some journal prompts for you to use. Reflect on it. Write freely. Let your truth rise to the surface. And if this episode spoke to you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Tag me at Davida Shinsky or send me a message. I'd love to know what part of your power you're taking back today. So until next time, this is Live Without Limits. Keep showing up for yourself. Keep reclaiming you. You are not too much. You were just around people who wanted you to be less. Not anymore. Take care, and I'll see you next time.